sad life. And this video got so many mixed reviews, and it never dawned on me that it would have such an impact, such a negative impact, because for me it was quite commonsensical that this is not something that applies to Western culture. Yet many Western cultured people, especially the intellectual rich, I will be liberal enough to say, feel this kind of way unapologetically. And other people who want to sound smart go along with this and think that it's okay without picking up a book and actually reading what this really means. It's gonna hate now. I'm just gonna share. Hello everyone, welcome. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I am still hiding this little piece of, as you can see, there's still construction going on in the background. All over. And of course, if you guys have been following me on Facebook, you are very much privy to some of the before and after pictures and videos that we've been posting here and there as to what we were doing and what we're planning on doing. Let's kick off this video with a book review because I haven't done that in a while. I just finished this book from Jordan Peterson, and I think it's a dead giveaway as to where I stand on some political issues if I talk about Jordan Peterson. But I will say that it was um I feel quite accomplished to have been able to read this book from cover to cover, with the exception of some of the references that he has made, um, which are another 100 pages. This book was very long, it was very insightful, and very complex. And the first complex book that I have read in a very, very long time. Now, I have to apologize for my appearance because my makeup artist, and I'm being very sarcastic, my daughter has been threatening to do my makeup. And if you're my makeup, and if you're following me on Facebook, you would know that she did my makeup yesterday, and she did a great job. But she's not feeling well today, so I just very quickly splashed some water on my face and tried to do some some highlighter. I don't know if you can tell the difference that I've made somewhat of an effort, but I digress. I was going to talk about this book yesterday when she did my makeup, but I decided to wait for today. And I just want to say that it was a good read because when I started following Jordan Peterson, I started to research his career, his lifestyle, and I kind of could resonate and understand with the way he would articulate certain complex political issues. Also, he is a psychologist, if I'm right, who is a fan of neurology, and that is somewhat in the realm of some of the things that I discuss on my channel and some of the things that I am doing in my own personal research in life as a teacher and a neurocognition. It's neurocognitionist. Neurosol. Let's just cut that one out, please. But in any case, I was doing some research on research on some of the things that he researches, and came up upon some other pretty interesting people that I will encourage y'all to go check out yourselves. And so I finally got a hold of one of his books a few years ago and finally got around to reading it. It is The 12 Rules for Life. And he has a couple of other books, but this one is one of his more well-known books. And so I finished reading it today. I finished reading it today, and I got to tell you that it's quite insightful, and the way he builds up his ideas is both tongue-in-cheek and very, very, very good, very insightful, very, very well thought out, and very creative, and kind of really on the money. He makes really good points. I don't agree with necessarily all of his points, but even the points, which is very hard to do, even the points that I don't necessarily agree with across the board, I can understand and see why and how it makes sense, which is, like I said, hard to do and very, very fascinating for someone who's not necessarily a writer. Like, that's not his profession, but the way he constructs this in written form is, for me, really, really, really worth the read. And if you can get through books, which I know a lot of people technically, statistically aren't able to do, you will be pleasantly surprised, even if you don't agree with some of the principles that he holds true as a person and in this book. Moving on, I decided after reading that book that I would take up the challenge of reading Totolsky, Theodore Totolsky. Is that how you say it? I'm going to start off with this one. I have a few others from him, but this book, I literally had to draw straws to see what I was going to read next because I have so many books that I want to take on and start to follow up on. And I think that it is in that spirit that we are going to have this conversation. Let's get into it, shall we? Now, I've been doing a lot of research on literacy, right? And I know that we don't talk a lot about literacy on this channel anymore because I've shifted a lot into relationship because I think relationships between men and women are the bread and butter of marriages, which is the bread and butter of family, which is the bread and butter of society. And I hope that that still reigns true for the general population because I know that we want to be more inclusive. However, while being more inclusive, we don't want to exclude what foundations in that inclusion are the general aspect of society that needs to be functioning in a way that allows society to function at its best. So, when I started to do research as a teacher on literacy, especially in America, I started to realize that there is a huge deficit when it comes to literacy of people living in urban societies. Now, I'm going to say urban because I tend to want to steer away from certain conversations, although I do get in these conversations off screen. Um, and it is a very, very big, huge importance to me personally as a person of color and as a person of Black African descent that this is a huge issue. In America, especially, 70% of the young people, men, boys, are illiterate. And you will find that that number has increased in the past as recent as 5 years, which is an alarming rate for us people of color living in America. Now, I don't live in America, and I notice here that the writing is slowly starting to show on the wall as it comes to literacy as well. I'm currently living in Germany, if you guys don't know already. Um, and a lot of that has to do with a breakdown in the advocacy of reading. And so that's why, even though they're not the most popular or even the most viewed videos on my channel, I do advocate for reading and I do advocate books. I mean, any kind of book, really. if, Even if it's just for getting started, because I think that it is one of the huge pillars of critical thinking, articulation, and self-sufficiency that an individual can bring to their lives to improve their situation. Now, why that has changed, it is of my opinion and based on certain research that a large part of the reason why that has changed is because of the invention of video games and social media. People are spending way much more time on these different avenues or channels or aspects of life and entertainment than they used to be spending reading. And in many ways, the internet has replaced book-based research, which is extremely uh, dangerous in my opinion because it's not always 100% sure that the internet-based research is credible as book-based. Now, it happens and it has happened and it will continue to happen that certain books are also not really credible even in the conversation of having to research a book or read a book by a person who obviously might have an agenda that is evident in the way the person writes or phrases ideas, the immortality of those ideas and what it is the person wants to continue to portray is evident in what it is they fundamentally believe if you're paying attention. Now, if that is the case with a book which a person took the time to write and articulate an idea, then why would it not be true for the internet? Yet people take things like TikTok and Facebook, for instance, with its dire critical biases and take it as law without even doing their research or due diligence, which is like a mantra and a broken record from my perspective when I continuously reiterate and bang over people's head that y'all have to do your due diligence and research, people, because everybody comes with an agenda. And if you're taking my grandfather's perspective, where he used to always tell me when I would do research for homework or do homework for school, like with history or in literature, he would always tell me question everything, which used to disgust my grandmother to no end because in her idea, there were things that you should not question, like the Bible or things like that. But I really believe and I appreciated the idea of questioning everything because it allows people the ability to think for themselves without before repeating things that you hear, even from sources that we respect, like Jordan Peterson. In my case, I respect him as a person. I still have a duty to my own level of competence to read and research some of the things that he has said, like picking up a copy of the Tolsky myself and reading through what he's done and has contributed to literature to see if it's something that really jives with me and to trace back where these ideologies are coming from and why. Everybody can do that if we have the ability to read, which is a fundamental skill that many young people these days don't have. And is it any wonder that without such a skill that we are in the critical mass situation that we are in right now? It is easy to fix. It is very easy to fix. It will take time and acknowledgement that it's a problem. But for people who can't read, there are two levels of, there is a dual issue going on. There is the shame and there is the ignorance. And maybe there's more. If y'all think that there is more, or maybe if I've missed something because I'm talking off the top of my head right now, those are the two things that come to mind. If there's more, please list them in the comment section down below. Um, that stops us from getting ahead as a people and as individuals. So it is no wonder that we see some of the craziness that we see in Black culture today passing for Black culture. It is because the vast majority of people of Black African descent are in urban situations and communities can't even pick up a book to even make a decision as to where they stand with some political issues because they can't even read. So while it might not be the most important aspect of our development or interest at this point, I will always openly and honestly advocate for reading, especially um, when it comes to issues of financial literacy and social literacy. Books like Jordan Peterson and Theodore Tolsky um, are fundamental to everybody's history, especially if you live in the West. Some of these issues affect us now, and it is super important for us to understand what's the background. I recently posted a video about a clapback that a person had referred to a communist book in reference to trad wives and trad life. And this video got so many mixed reviews, and it never dawned on me that it would have such an impact, such a negative impact, because for me it was quite commonsensical that this is not something that applies to Western culture. Yet many Western cultured people, especially the intellectual rich, I will be liberal enough to say, feel this kind of way unapologetically. And other people who want to sound smart go along with this and think that it's okay without picking up a book and actually reading what this really means. And it makes me feel so sad because, like, if you just did that, well, of course, to those of us who aren't even literate enough to do that, I can understand. So please advocate for literacy because the literacy will help you to do your due diligence and research to figure out exactly what it is people are really saying when they're talking about um the leisure elite or conspicuous consumption and social issues and socialism. What do those concepts actually mean? And how do they affect us as people today in Western society? Now, I plan on making a whole slew of videos for next week addressing and breaking down these fundamental issues and looking at the timeline. It might be a little bit boring for my usual common audience, but it has to be done because I believe that a big issue for most of us is that the people in whose care we were did not advocate. I think they just thought it was going to happen organically, with the exception of my family and parents, did not advocate enough for reading and critical thinking. I think that was just assumed that we would learn to do that, and now we're seeing the evidence of the lack thereof. And so, if you do nothing this week or this Sunday, pick a book up. It'll do you some good. See here, this is just one of many sections in my house that has books. I've read half of those already. There are many more in the living room and many more tucked over there. I think I have about 100 books at this point. And I've read more than that in my lifetime. So illiteracy is not a shock to me. It's one of the reasons I have a job. But if I do nothing else for the rest of this year, I am going to make sure that I increase people's literacy and bilingualism, which is another issue that just blows my mind. And people think that it's fascinating that you can speak more than one language. I grew up in a time, in a place where that was supposed to be like a given, like you were supposed to be able to speak two languages. And now, when people are struggling to just speak and read and write one, I hope you guys have a good summer. Dates, times, just not my thing. Have a good weekend, you guys. Happy Sunday. Hope you are having a great time wherever it is you are. Shout out to all my Belizean listeners. I've been having a lot of people come to me in the DMs and telling me that they're following my topics and they find a lot of stuff that I talk about interesting. So leave me a comment and a like, share, like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. And thanks for stopping by.